next speaker, it's not often you get to introduce somebody that you've been able to connect on so many different levels, and you may have only known for a short period of time, but you start to feel like this is a long-lost sister. And this next speaker is also a nominee of the Terry McCann Award. She's our past president and has been somebody that has really taken all of the things that Toastmasters offers and leveraged them into some incredible life expansion. And with that, help me welcome Joan with her speech, 3 Waves of Influence.
It's interesting, isn't it, how things work out. There was a young man, not Terry McCann, who in his youth professed a desire to become a great writer. When asked to define great, he said, "I want to write stuff the whole world will read, stuff that people will react to on a truly emotional level, stuff that will make them scream, cry, wail, howl in pain, desperation, and anger." Well, the young man got his wish. He now works for Microsoft writing error messages. I have been given the great honor of talking a little bit about influence, and particularly how the influence of some people, Terry McCann specifically, reaches beyond the scope of their physical presence. Because I never met Terry McCann, but he has influenced my life. And when I first looked at what is this influence, it wasn't any of the obvious things. I don't know what car he drove. He may, obviously, he's in a suit there. He looked great in a suit, but he's not known for his snappy dressing. He's known for dressing comfortably. I've heard that more than once. And he wasn't famous. He wasn't a movie star or one of the most handsome men of the year for Time magazine. So what was this influence that has impacted people's lives who never even met him? Now the first influence, I've got 3 waves of influence, and the first one, the most obvious one, was personal influence. We all have people in our lives who've touched us, either for a moment or a period of time, reached across the abyss and moved us to a different, new, brighter, better place. I've met a number of people who have shared the positive impact that Terry McCann's influence had on their lives, and I, in fact, have been influenced by Colby and Nancy and people who, in turn, benefited from Terry McCann's presence. Speaking of personal influence, there was one story from my life that really highlighted how amazing it can be when someone inspires you. I had an English teacher freshman year. It was an AP English teacher, first year in a new school, and she was built like a linebacker. So not only was she physically with broad shoulders and a square jaw, but she had a reputation as a very hard teacher. And at the same time, she loved literature with her whole being. So our first assignment, she gave us all poems, 14 years old, and she said, write an essay, 1 to 2 pages, on the poem you've been given. And I got this 3-page thing. It could have been written in Greek or Latin. It meant nothing. It was a string of words, brief images, some colors. It was gibberish, and I had nothing to write. My first and second and third impulse was to get up and give up and go outside. But whenever I did, I thought of Mrs. King and her imposing reputation and her imposing figure, and I sat there. And I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there, and then I got really very quiet. And in that silence, the meaning of the poem, not what the words were saying, but the meaning of the metaphor of the poem came up from within me. And I wrote an essay that set up a great freshman year. Now that was my talent, to be able to look beyond the surface. But I would never have realized it in that moment without the personal influence of someone who allowed their passion to overflow towards others. Henry Adams said, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." And that's certainly true of Terry McCann. We have evidence right here. But that doesn't explain everything. Personal influence. One man may work tirelessly, but he cannot touch that many people to create such a wave. So there had to be something else, another kind of influence. Recently, and Gary McCoppin, our area governor, can attest to this, I helped plan the area speech contest. It was this past Saturday. And I'll admit, I didn't necessarily like doing it. I was a little bitter. I even ungraciously complained a little. And there are people in this room who can attest to that. It was hard work, and not everyone appreciated me. The days before the contest coincided with my beginning to think about this speech. And as I was walking, feeling my grumbling about, I have to do this and that and this person, da-da-da-da-da, I was simultaneously wondering, what was the second influence? What was this other way? Why do I know Terry McCann's name? Why do I know so much about him? Why has he impacted my life? And as the two overlapped, I had a flash, a seeing through the layers that this contest wasn't about me. It wasn't about my recognition and my glory. It was service. And I realized there's an influence of service. And Terry McCann most certainly embodied that. George Eliot said, "Blessed is the influence of one true, loving human soul on another." But still, that didn't explain everything, because many people offer themselves in service. Many people help build up organizations and volunteer their time. And all of them have an impact, but this was even more than that. Terry McCann did something else also. And so I continued to reflect. And what I realized was the third wave, which is indeed the biggest wave, is the influence of becoming. And with Terry McCann, that's evidenced in what it took for him to achieve the gold medal. It's evident in what it took to become someone who could help raise 7 children, who could have successful businesses, who could inspire people and have so much to offer. And I know for myself, it is the becoming that is the hardest thing. It is easier to serve than to face the raw truth of oneself and push beyond it. Mark Twain, in jest, said, "Clothes make the man. Naked people have little or no influence on society." And I know Mark Twain was of such intelligence that, in fact, he was pointing at the fact that it is when we are most naked. It is who we are when we are naked, with ourselves, not just of clothes, but honest with ourselves and able to face and overcome the challenges that present themselves to us, that we do have the most influence, that we do have the most impact. And Terry McCann said it in himself when he said, "Pour yourself into every activity." Henry George mentioned, "Let no man imagine that he has no influence. Whoever he may be, and wherever he may be placed, the man who thinks becomes a light and power." As I said in the beginning, it is an honor for me to speak at this opportunity to honor Terry McCann, but also to recognize the ways in which he influenced the people around him, the world around him, and how that influence has continued to move out like water, like waves, since his life ended. And it's very inspiring for me to look forward into the next 40 years of my life and say, yes, I definitely would like to become someone who can benefit people through my personal influence and can benefit people from my service and can continue to be a positive force in the world beyond the time that I am alive. I'll leave you with this quote. Goethe said, "He who wishes to exert a useful influence must be careful to insult nothing. Let him not be troubled by what seems absurd, but to concentrate his energies to the creation of what is good. He must not demolish, but build. He must raise temples where mankind may come and partake of the purest pleasure, like Toastmasters." Thank you.